Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science to watch collection. Today we're going to look at chronographs. This is a lot of them. So this is from affordable to fabulous chronographs. So we're going to get started. And the first thing we're going to start on is the most ubiquitous of all the chronographs. And this is the ETA 7750. And what I did, I started looking for the different watches that are based, and there are so many, they're just an incredible number. So what I did, I just put the name of the company that uses them. And then there's a whole lot of others that have some derivative of the 7750. So anyhow, so here's the first one. You have Archimedes, Baume and Mercier, Certina, Chopard, Damasco, Eterna, the Fortis, Hamilton, Kobold, Laco, Limes, Longines, Mont Blanc, Rado, Sen, Speak Marin, Steinhardt, Tissot. Now, these are just some of the watches that use it. Here some others. Now, these have some kind of ETA base. For example, the Van der Gang and the Tudor both use an ETA 7753, which is based on the ETA 7750. The Stout also uses the 7753. Now the Doxa uses an ETA 7734, which is not from the 7750, but rather a combination of an ETA movement, I think it's 2894, one of those, and then the Dubois de Prix module that's put on top of it. The IWC, they have a whole set of ETA 7900 series that they've worked on. They have the base is through the 7750, but they've done a lot of things to them. So when we're talking about chronographs, really, the vast majority are done with some version of either the ETA 7750 or an ETA movement with the Dubois de Prix module, chronograph module. So in terms of getting a watch, it's pretty easy to find one. I took a quick look, and there are lots of them. Now this is under $500. You can find some with this ETA movement. These are new watches. You can find some of the Chinese Seagull with those under $100. So there's lots of mechanical chronographs, automatic, hand wound, and so forth. So the first thing that it's important to recognize that you don't want to go paying a whole lot of money for a watch that has exactly the same movement as a much less expensive one. Take a look at Tissot. Seems to have the best, sort of a decent level of watch in terms of the movement that's the chronograph movement, which is some kind of 7750 or 7750 base, because that's where things are. Now they're cam driven, and they are lateral or the horizontal clutch on it. Okay, so this could be important. We had a very short video on what that means, so you can take a look at our little video explaining the difference between a column wheel and a cam and a vertical and horizontal clutch, also referred to sometimes as a lateral clutch. all of these use the cam and the horizontal clutch. So if that's something that some people feel a little uneasy about. Now, another related kind of movement in all of this is the Tag Heuer. Now, they have something called the Caliber 16, which is an ETA 7750 based. There's a Carrera there, a Tag Heuer Carrera. They have Caliber 12, and it is based on the Sellita SW 300-1 plus the Dubois Depra chronograph, a version of. There are a whole lot of Dubois Depra versions for different sizes and different configurations, but they those are involved in a lot of different movements. Okay, so this is all of the sort of the first level that you want to think about. Now, what I wanted to do is to introduce some other kinds of watches with interesting chronograph movements. Now, it seems that everybody knows the Rolex Daytona as the chronograph, but the one I like, in fact, I like it better, is a Rolex Yachtmaster 2. Not only does it have a chronograph, it's got a countdown with it. A couple of years ago, Ulysse Nardin had one called the Marine Regatta, and it won a Grand Prix award for the best sports watch, and it had also had a countdown. There aren't very many watches with that, but I mean, if for at this level of watchmaking, so not only do you have something that you can time with, you have something that'll do the countdown. So another type of chronograph. Now, here are a couple that were very interesting. This is from Parmigiani Fleurier. They have two, well, actually, they have another one called I forgot the name of the other one, but these are two that I thought were interesting. One's called the Aerial Light, and the other one's called the Metrograph. The Aerial Light is, they're a little more pricey, and these are like street prices that I've got. They're not the list prices. First of all, they have the PF 335 chronograph. Now, this is entirely built by Parmigiani Fleurier, which would mean Vaucheur built it, did the actual production of it. The other one is a very interesting one. It's called the Metrograph, $7,500. To me, that is one of the better deals around because this is really get a high horology. You have the movement's called the PF 315, but what it is, it's a combination of Parmigiani's PF 331 plus the Dubois Depra chronograph on top of it. So anyway, I thought that was sort of interesting. And so, I mean, they've got nothing to do with ETA, but they do have something to do, at least one of them does, with the Dubois Depra. Okay, let's go on. Now, here you sort of have three major ones. There was a time back, I think in 1969, when there's a big competition between Zenith and some conglomerate. They were all racing to make the first chronograph that was on an automatic. But Seiko was also doing it too, and nobody paid attention to them. Now, what's happened is really interesting. You know, probably the most famous chronograph is not an automatic, but it's the Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch. And it is a chronograph, but it's a hand-wound chronograph based on the Lamania 1873, and they have a Omega called the Omega 1861. Now, they have an automatic chronograph called this is from Omega, called the 3301. It's based on the Piguet 1285. And then they have a newer one, and there's probably at some point, if you dig enough in there, you'll probably find the ETA 7750. Okay, so those are these sort of come up in the center of everything. Now, another type of chronograph is called a Rattrapant. They're also called the split second, and the German term for it is Doppel. So if you see a Rattrapant or split second or Doppel, they're all the same. Here are a couple that won a Grand Prix award. The Parmigiani Fleurier Tonda Kroner Anniversary. That thing is over $100,000. It's really a fabulous watch, but whoa, very expensive. The Harbring 2, on the other hand, the Doppel Felix, is a fascinating watch. First of all, Richard Harbring developed the Doppel for IWC. He was working at IWC, and they were trying to work something out, and he came along and figured it out for him, the Doppel. And then he was able to adopt it to his movement was called the A11 that he developed at Harbring. And the first one he came out with was called the Felix, the first watch with that movement. And then he came out with not just a chronograph, but a Doppel chronograph. So, so this is another type of chronograph, if you're interested in things. Harbring 2, that thing is around $7,000-8,000. Very reasonable for a handmade watch. And this one I got my eye on. I don't know. I still have little use for the one that I have now. Now, this next group of watches, these are all watches that have had a Grand Prix award for the chronograph category. This year, 2019, Bulgari had one. Super thin watch. It's the thinnest chronograph that they've ever had. A few years ago, Piaget had one, and they had a very thin one, but they used a column wheel, and they the smallest column wheel. I don't know whether they used a vertical clutch or not. They may have, which would mean they have the thinnest vertical clutch. Bulgari, they didn't say one way or the other. Then another winner was Mont Blanc. Now, Mont Blanc, some Mont Blancs, in fact, I think we had one that was listed there. We had it used the ETA, but they also have a Mont Blanc monopusher using Minerva movement. It's a beautiful movement on that. So I think it may be all hand wound too. I don't know. I know I'm pretty sure these other two are as well, but I'm not positive. I mean, they're really thin, but they may be using a peripheral movement. Now, the final one I'm going to talk about is called the Agograph AGH 6361. This is by Wiederreck. He won the, I think it's Jean-Marc Wiederreck. He was the first winner of the Watchmaker of the Year. This guy's stuff is incredible. That's the only word for it. So he decided he wanted to make a chronograph, and so this is what he took. These are the problems he cites. First of all, there were the small subdial counters. There were poor legibility. There were moldable ones, which is also poor legibility. The analog minute indicators, they had poor legibility. The horizontal clutch stuttered. The varying power requirements when the chronograph was operating. So when the chronograph was going, and plus the other stuff, you have different ones. There was very variable power available to the regulator, so the amplitude of the balance is fairly constant. The vertical clutch was more expensive. Excessively strong forces increased the wear. Strong reset force led to shock. So every time you pull that thing back and it resets, it sends a shock. And then automatic winding conceals mechanical beauty. Now that one I like because that's what I believe. This one is they solved all of those problems It doesn't use either type of clutch. It uses an Agon clutch or something like that. And if this is one example to the right is the Singer Reimagine, which won the 2018 award for the best chronograph. It should have probably won, I think, the best watch ever. So anyway, this will give you a big overview of this. Now, these are really expensive watches. Probably one I didn't quite get time to is the A. Longa Datograph. This is another one, just incredibly good, incredibly expensive. But this should give you some idea of chronographs. Like to hear your opinion. Tell me about your chronograph or one you'd like to get. All right, so this is until Sunday. This is when we have a review I think you're going to like. This is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection.